To NFL Spotlight, I am your host, Ari Meirov. What a last couple of days here around the NFL. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. We are currently live on YouTube and on X. I'll be transparent. We were supposed to do this yesterday. Immediately after the NFL trade deadline, I got awfully sick. We could not do it. Feeling much better now, thankfully. But yesterday was a crazy day around the NFL, a difficult day for me. But here we are, and we have a lot to get to around the NFL, from what happened with the Colts, the Cowboys, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the deals that did happen, deals that did not happen. A lot to get to here on NFL Spotlight, and we're going to cover all of it here starting now. Let me bring in my good friend, my producer, Ben Allen. Ben, what's going on? I'm sorry for not coming on yesterday. Thank you for being a good friend, but here we are covering everything here today.
There was a real part of me that was like, you know what? I can do this. And then immediately just like rushing over of, that's a terrible idea. That's a terrible idea. You're not doing that. This is why we need Ari, because even though you were sick, you were still working through everything. You're like, I gotta keep the feet up. Gotta keep my sports update rolling. And you did. So kudos to you. But now we get to take the opportunity to actually talk about all the fun stuff that happened, because holy bleep, was it exciting. And I think I texted you last night. I was like, I hope you got to enjoy it a little bit, because I think we expected there to be some moves. I don't think we quite expected it to be to this level. So I don't think there is any better place to start than what the New York Jets did. Let's start with the first move that happened there. You want to start with Sauce?
I want to give credit to the Jets here for realizing the situation that, they had a lot of really good players on this team, a lot of players that many teams around the NFL wanted and would have wanted, and they tried to lowball the Jets at some points, and they realized that they are a 1-17 despite all these players and new regime, Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, and it's more of a situation of let's figure out who are the guys we want to move forward with, who are the guys who we think we can move on from. And Sauce was never somebody who they were looking to trade this year, but when you look at the way they structured his contract in the offseason, when they made him the highest paid cornerback in football, it definitely left an opening for him to be traded. But the Colts, who have been one of the more surprise teams around the NFL, 7-2 this year. Daniel Jones is very much in the conversation for one of the top awards in the NFL for how he's playing this year. And they really wanted to get a cornerback with Charvarius Ward currently on IR with a concussion. They needed one more guy. And really, when you look at the cornerback market that was here during the trade deadline market, there really were not many names. It was just Alontae Taylor from the Saints was maybe available, but the asking price there was also high. So should we go for a bridge guy, somebody who's going to become a rental like Alontae Taylor and pay a second, third round pick? Or just say, screw it, let's try to find one of these big names, try to find somebody who's worth it. And the offers kept on going up and up, as Jets GM Darren Muji said. And eventually 2 first-round picks, 1 in 26, 1 in 27, and wide receiver A.D. Mitchell is in this deal. And think about it from a Colts perspective. Nobody thought you'd have this type of a year. We knew they have a lot of talent on this roster, but the quarterback was always a question mark. And you made all those moves this offseason, from signing Daniel Jones and signing Charvarius Ward and signing Cam Bynum and drafting Tyler Warren, hiring Lou Anarumo. Think about Lou Anarumo, who came from Cincinnati, was in a place where over the last couple of years, they kept on taking away players from him, seeing Jesse Bates leave, seeing DJ Reader leave. And now here you are in Indianapolis, and they're giving you players, giving you more players, trading for Sauce Gardner. This is as all in as it gets. And for the Colts, they believe they're a really good team who can compete in the AFC and can be really good these next 2 years without a first-round pick. GM Chris Ballard, he definitely has saved his job over here with the way he's done it this year. This is now the 4th first-round pick that he has traded for a player. 2 for Sauce, 1 for DeForest Buckner, 1 for Carson Wentz. He also traded down out of the first round in 2021 with Washington for 2 second-round picks. So he's not been scared to make those type of moves. And for Sauce Gardner, young in his career, still in the prime of his career, they go ahead and do this deal. But a lot more to cover here on this trade. And I do want to focus on the contract over here as well. And I was watching the Jets GM Darren Muji, talking to reporters yesterday. He talked about the contract. This is what he had to say. I found it really, really interesting.
trade deadline, the process for doing that contract is a very detailed one where, credit to Nick Sabella, we had a lot of discussion going through that contract process and some of the details we had to have in that contract, because you never know how the future is going to unfold. And we always wanted to be in a position to potentially trade these contracts. And credit to Nick Sabella, he did a great job on that contract, made that contract still a tradable contract for the case that you get into a situation where the value you think is just too good to pass up. And that happened to be the case here.
He did it fast. He did it fast.
Very fast. That's a very open answer, by the way, for a GM to go out and say that when we do our contracts, we're thinking about trading them as well. And for Sauce Gardner, 4 years, $130.4 million, I believe, was the contract that he signed, highest paid cornerback in NFL history. Basically, what the Jets did with that contract was essentially it was a very low signing bonus, only $13.75 million. And the rest of the contract, it was kind of set up in these option bonuses in 2026, in 2027. And since those options had not yet triggered, that essentially, if you trade that contract, the options, all it does is it changes hands from the Jets to the Colts. So the dead money for a deal like this, you would think it's astronomical. It was only under $20 million in dead money for the Jets to move on from Sauce Gardner. This was something that, as an organization, as you heard Darren Muji talk over there, they were really, really serious about, if we're going to do a Sauce extension in the offseason, it must be structured in a way where we have the ability to trade it at some point. For example, the Myles Garrett contract in Cleveland also happened last offseason. Everyone put him in trade talks. His contract is basically impossible to trade. It would have taken on $90 million in dead money by moving on from him. This contract for Sauce was set up in a very specific way. And for the way I see it, the Jets basically did a deal, rewarded a really good player. They also sent the message to the locker room that, hey, we're going to reward our good players here. But at the same time, in the back of their minds, they knew if we ever get that Godfather offer, we'll be able to move on from him. And that's exactly what they did. So we'll talk about the Quinnen Williams trade here in a second. But this is now a situation where the Jets have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 drafts. Coming up over here. They had this once before. Keep that in mind. The year where they took Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson and Garrett Wilson, Elijah Vera Tucker. Those are all 4 big hits. The one big miss was the quarterback in Zach Wilson. So they've had this before. It's an exciting time for the Jets where you're moving over to the future now while still having a lot of building blocks as well, which is important to mention. It's not a team that is fully tearing it down. Like, Garrett Wilson is still there. Olu Fashanu is there. Armand Membu is there. Jermaine Johnson is still there. Will McDonald is there. Like, there are pieces on this team, but they're trying to create it in the image of Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, and that's kind of what is going on over here. One more thing about this trade, the A.D. Mitchell element to it, I find it very fascinating because the Colts did not want to trade him. This was a request made by the Jets to get it past the finish line. And we know A.D. Mitchell, he was a former day 2 pick, obviously had his negative moments in Indianapolis this year. The touchdown that he let go of the ball too early was obviously a very critical mistake. It was previously, before this week, the only loss the Colts had. He also had a costly holding penalty in that game, kind of was put in the doghouse. But from the Colts perspective, they still viewed him as an ascending player who just needs to mature. And essentially the way they looked at him was that once Alec Pierce, who becomes a free agent after this year, is going to get a lot of money, we're going to move Adonai Mitchell into the Alec Pierce role. For this deal to get done, the Jets made a request, you must put A.D. Mitchell into the trade. And of course, they already got down so far down the road of the trade, they decided to do it. But I find that element to be very interesting, and I think he could definitely have a career with the Jets. So they now have added John Mechie and A.D. Mitchell here in some of their trades over the last few days.
Well, and there's such a low risk for it, right? Like, you're getting a guy who was the 52nd pick, I believe, in the draft. There was obviously a lot of people that thought like he could even have a higher draft stock than what we saw him go for. Low risk, high reward. Maybe he develops into somebody who can really work with Garrett Wilson. I do want to ask you about Garrett Wilson in a moment, but we got to talk about the other big piece that they made, which was moving Quinnen Williams to the Dallas Cowboys. Do you think their plan going into yesterday was that they were trading Quinnen, or do you think after the Sauce Gardner piece fell that they decided, you know what, let's do both?
But we did a show last week talking about trade deadline preview names to keep an eye on. Quinnen Williams was on that list for me, and I was like, listen, which team is going to blow them away? Who is that going to be? Is there going to be a team that says, screw it, let's make the big offer and get him? And in fact, there were multiple teams who were trying to get him, but the Cowboys have had a interest and liking to Quinnen Williams ever since the offseason. In fact, Jerry Jones actually went on ESPN New York radio after the Micah Parsons trade and basically admitted that they called the Jets when they were trying to trade Micah, and they basically said, hey, give us 2 first-round picks, give us Quinnen, we'll give you Micah. The Jets said no because they were not in a position to trade for Micah, pay for Micah, give up 2 first-round picks, not where they are as an organization. But dating back to then, the Cowboys have had an affinity for Quinnen Williams. So here we go now. The Jets obviously are 1-7. The Cowboys lost on Monday night. They're now 3-5-1. And they were like, our defense is one of the worst in football. Let's try to improve it now. And Jerry Jones said after the Micah Parsons trade, I'm going to use some of those draft picks in the future. And he was not lying. And he did it over here. And the one thing that I don't like about this is everyone is pointing to 2025 with this Quinnen Williams trade. Like, oh, the Cowboys are 3-5-1. Why are you trading for Quinnen Williams? Your season is basically over. If you make the playoffs, you probably get bounced in the first round. This is not a move solely for 2025. This is for 25, for 26, for 27. This is a veteran roster in Dallas. That's where it is right now. They are not in a position right now where they are looking just to draft a bunch of young guys and develop a bunch of young guys when they have a $60 million a year quarterback and they have a $35 million per year receiver and a bunch of other high priced players on the team. Quinnen Williams is 27, will become 28 here in December. Still a good player, still somebody who is a run stuffer, really, really good at that position, which is something Jerry Jones has been looking for all offseason long. And now he joins a very expensive interior defensive line with Osa Digizua and Kenny Clark. As of right now, those 3 are combined, making over $60 million per year. We'll see how that looks next year. But this is a team that really wants to improve their defense. It's pretty clear they never wanted to pay Micah Parsons, who ended up getting $47 million per year from Green Bay. And their way of doing it is we move on from $47 million per year, and now we're going to split that up among a bunch of players here while also getting draft picks and moving on from some of the draft picks. I'm not going to say it's the most perfect process. There's people around the NFL who have been like, listen, if I was going to trade Micah Parsons, there's definitely better ways to go with it and how to do it and when to do it and what to do after. This is not exactly the most perfect way to do it, but that's the way the Cowboys are operating over here. We'll see if it gives them a boost for the rest of this year, but people saying this is a 2025 move, it's not. This is them thinking towards the future. The Cowboys still have 2 first-round picks coming up in this draft. They still have 1 in 2027. The one thing about this trade, which I did not like from the Cowboys' perspective, is the Jets got the better of the 2 first-round picks in 2027. As a result, the Cowboys' 2027 draft pick is now frozen. Both their picks are frozen. So if Jerry wants to trade one of those picks in the offseason in March, in April, in May, next year before the trade deadline, he cannot. Both those picks are now frozen from the Cowboys. They have to wait until after the season is over in 2026 to see which pick is actually theirs, which pick is actually the Jets pick, and then he would be allowed to move that pick. That part of it I didn't like, but that was what it took to get this deal done. And credit to the Jets, by the way, because the Cowboys had 2 1s in 26, 2 1s in 2027. The Jets requested the 2027 first-round pick. That is them, in my opinion, looking at the advanced scouting that their scouts do. The 26 draft is fine. The 27 draft is viewed by scouts who do this day in and day out as one of the best drafts we're going to have in the next looking back many, many years. I mean, there's a bunch of receivers, a bunch of pass rushers, and there's also potential for some quarterbacks in that draft. So that element of it, I find it very interesting. And again, the Jets now have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years. They had this once before. The Raiders had this once before in 2019 and 2020. Out of it, they got Cleveland Farrell and Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Abram and Henry Ruggs and David Arnett. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. These draft picks are essentially lottery picks. You don't know what you're getting, but the Jets have a lot of guys who are scouts at heart. Darren Muji came from Denver. He's a scout at heart. Aaron Glenn, by the way, is very involved in all of this. From what I was told from some people, these trades, whether Darren wanted it or not, it was not happening until Aaron gave the green light, and eventually he did. So he might even have more control than Darren. But at the end of the day, they are in lockstep over here. They wanted to do this, and they're officially looking into the future.
So I want to take a quick sidebar because there's still more to talk about with the Jets, but particularly with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, you take that step back, you think about what happened with the Micah Parsons trade, you think about the assets that they got. Now you think about the assets that they're sending out here. Do you think that this ended up being kind of what Jerry had in mind? You're getting a guy at a more quote unquote premium position because there's fewer guys that really can fill the middle the way that Quinnen can. Do you think that everyone, like if you're a Cowboys fan and you're looking at the collection that you got from that move and then also going this, you add Kenny Clark into the mix. Do you think Cowboys fans should feel good about all these moves?
I think it's an incomplete answer. You cannot answer this question until you see what they do with those first round picks coming up over here in this upcoming draft. So far, what they've gotten out of that trade, they have now 1 first round pick from that trade. They have Kenny Clark, they have Quinnen Williams. We have to see the rest of this trade. Obviously, Micah Parsons has been really good for the Green Bay Packers, but at the same time, the important factor in all of this is the money. And that's kind of what held up the Cowboys from deciding to hold on to him. $46.5 million per year when you already have a high-priced quarterback and a high-priced receiver and a high-priced tight end and a high-priced right tackle in Terrence Steele, and then you have more offensive linemen to pay. They paid Tyler Smith already, another high-priced interior offensive lineman, highest-paid guard in football. Osa Digizua is making a lot of money. Trevon Diggs making a lot of money. Deron Bland is making a lot of money. Adding $47 million per year to your books was something that would have been very difficult for them. That's part of the reason why they did it. Now, again, I don't agree with their plan of doing it right before the season. I think they should have done it in March or April. They decided not to do that, but that was their plan. And now with those picks, with the added cap space and cash, they've been able to add more players out of the deal. So far, we've been watching the Cowboys defense this year. It has had times where it's been really bad. Basically, the entire year, it's been really bad. Jacoby Brissett looked great. Marvin Harrison Jr. Monday night had the most catches in his career. This is what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys defense. They're hoping this could help. And then again, 2 first-round picks in this upcoming draft. What do you do with it? So until all those answers, all those questions are answered, I can't give you the full answer here, but that is the context behind how the Cowboys have operated with the entire Micah Parsons situation. If the Packers go on to win the Super Bowl, obviously the noise will only get louder over here, but that was the thought process in Dallas, in Jerry, with how they ended up handling all of this dating back to August.
I like our official Dak supporter that is through the comment up there for a moment ago, noting that when the Cowboys made that trade for Amari Cooper a few years back, 3-5. Now you add a tie to this. It's fun. I was talking to Zach Martin about this exact same thing yesterday on NFL IQ. It's a very interesting topic about how those moves really can reinvigorate a locker room. A lot of exciting stuff. Go check that out as well. Jerry Jones.
I do want to, since we're talking about just, quarterbacks and Dak and everything, I want to slide back for a second just to the Colts thing. Could we talk about just how much leverage Daniel Jones has going into the offseason now?
This is all he does. Is just find leverage in weird situations.
The Colts don't have 2 first-round picks right now. He signed a 1-year contract. He's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in football. It would not surprise me if $50 million per year is on the plate of here.
But Ari, they have their quarterback of the future in Anthony Richardson. What do you mean?
Richardson he's not going to, the answer to that. But Daniel Jones has positioned himself after getting 4 years and 160 from the Giants to, I think, having the chance to get 4 years, 200 from the Colts. That's my current projection for Daniel Jones this offseason if the play continues the way he's played up until now. That's my projection. Obviously had a very, very difficult game versus the Steelers. They go ahead and play versus the Falcons in Berlin this week. They have some big games coming up. Got to win the division, but they are all in. And now they traded away 2 first-round picks. You have no other avenue to go get another quarterback. They obviously believe in him, and he's going to get another payday, guys. Be ready for a Daniel Jones monster contract once again.
And I think the funny thing is as much as like he had that negative narrative being in New York and everything in New York just gets amplified. So if you have one bad game, it's like you had a bad season. Everyone seems to really like Daniel Jones. Like he seems like very likable in the locker room. Guys respect him. Guys want to play with him. It's just such a funny dichotomy compared to what the public perception has been of him.
He's been a punching bag for sure in the public, but every teammate he's had, first of all, is still close friends with him. That's
Right.
Saquon Barkley, Darius Slayton was on our show before the season. Like all of them are still very close to him. And I think he just got all his confidence shot when he was in New York and he needed a fresh start. And he ended up in Indianapolis and he easily won the quarterback competition with Anthony Richardson. And like I've said before, and I'll say it again here, the current weapons he has in Indianapolis is way better than he ever had in New York with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce and Tyler Warren on the offense line that they have. And you're seeing it now. I mean, he's able to run, he's able to throw. He's running the offense the way Shane Steichen wants to. And we always talk about Kirk Cousins being the quarterback king when it comes to contracts. Daniel Jones is going to join that party here this offseason. So be ready for that.
It's fantastic. For anybody watching along here, feel free to drop us some comments. We're looking through stuff as well as we go through this. Before we move on to some of the more of the Jet stuff, do want to wrap up here with the Dallas Cowboys because they made another move, which everyone was clowning Jerry that he's like, you know what? We got to we got something. I already got it in the books. It's going to be great. It ends up being this Logan Wilson deal, which, everyone is like, this was what you were talking about. Do you think that was really what he was referring to? Or do you think he actually knew that the Quinnen thing was potentially going to be happening?
Yeah, so the Logan Wilson deal was actually done before the Monday night game. Since both these teams, the Bengals and the Cowboys, are owned by owners or the GMs there, they were able to keep that thing very quiet. So shout out to both organizations with doing that. But Logan Wilson was basically done in Cincinnati, was overtaken by two young guys, and the Cowboys linebacker play this year has not been good. So they go out there, get him for a 7th-round pick. They need someone to plug those holes, as Jerry Jones said, and this is more of a 2025 type of a trade here for the Dallas Cowboys to try to improve what they have this year and see if they could maybe sneak into the playoffs, go on a bit of a win streak. The offense picks it up again. The defense can maybe stop allowing points every single possession. That's the idea here. The linebacker play has not been good. There's not been much pass rush, but this is now another player here along with Quinnen Williams. Quinnen was being worked on for the last couple of days as well. It was never really sure if the Jets were truly going to trade him or not. Obviously, once the deal was set up in a way where they were getting the 2nd-round pick and the 1st-round pick and Mozzie Smith in the deal, that's when it got done. For what it's worth, the original deal the Cowboys offered was nothing close to what ended up being the deal. It was, from my knowledge, there was a 4th-round pick in it. It was a 2026 1st-round pick. The Jets did not want that. Eventually, the Cowboys reshuffled the entire deal to a 2 this year and a 1 next year, which is what the Jets wanted. They wanted a 2027 1st-round pick, and they wanted the better pick of the 2 picks. Once the Cowboys said okay to that, that's when the deal got done. So when Jerry actually went on Sirius XM radio on Monday before Monday Night Football and said we have one deal done and more possibly in the works, he actually was not lying. That was not him trying to, make up some stuff and try to get the energy to be talking about the Cowboys on ESPN and First Take and all that. He was being really honest about that. And of course, both deals eventually got done. The only cherry on top that did not happen for the Cowboys was losing on Monday night. Instead of being 4-4-1, you're 3-5-1, which obviously is way worse.
Yeah, not great. Okay, let's transition back to the team that we've been talking about through all this whole thing, because there was also some notable things that happened with the Jets that didn't happen. Because we keep hearing about, anyone who was on social yesterday saw there were some names popping up. There were some guys that, Jermaine Johnson, somebody in the same draft class, Breece Hall. Suddenly we're getting reports that Breece Hall does not want to be a New York Jet. As the time was ticking by, I personally was just like, oh, this is going to happen. Breece Hall's going to get moved. We'll see about Jermaine Johnson. The deadline hits and he's still there. Are you surprised that Breece Hall ended up not getting moved? I think we have briefly lost Ari's mic here for a second. This is the fun part about streaming. Did you hit your microphone, Ari? We'll get back to this in a second while Ari fixes his microphone. The New York Jets obviously had a whole lot of stuff going on yesterday, and as does Ari right now. I want to tell you guys, though, for a brief moment here about everything that we have going on at the 33rd team. We've got a lot of shows coming on right now with NFL IQ. We have the St. Brown brothers. We obviously have us here on NFL Spotlight. There's a whole lot of great shows that we have going around the block here. Also want to tell you about our friends over at Root Insurance, who are a fantastic partner for us. If you're looking to try to be able to get like really solid insurance that also rewards you for safe driving, you got to go to root.com. Check out these guys. They have done a fantastic job of being able to take the technological aspect of driving and help you be rewarded from what you're doing. You know, it's all based primarily on your driving sensors from that smartphone app. I know personally for me, like being able to drive and get a little bit of feedback being in Los Angeles, like is fantastic for me. So, you know, it's great to be able to check that out before you switch. They can make it easy on you by being able to just be able to change update your policies, file a claim. All of it's right there in the app. Go to root.com. Check it out. If you're looking for auto insurance, there are far worse options you can find than root.com. We love them here over at the 33rd team. And we still got a lot of more football trades to get to here. I think Ari's back. Mr. Technology himself. Ari, are you back with us? Testing. No, we still don't have him here. This is fun. This is what happens when you have mic issues during a live stream. But that is okay because we love Ari and he has a lot of things going on with this microphone. So we're going to go ahead and let him keep working through this here while he does this stuff. There was a lot of trades that also didn't happen. We're going to get that here in a moment with Ari. We've also got to be able to break down the rest that's going on with the New York Jets. There were a lot of moves that took place that I think kind of slid under the radar that we need to talk about. The Titans traded Draymond Jones to the Ravens for a conditional 2026 fifth-round pick. That can actually move to a fourth-round pick if they were able to get 2 sacks out of him the rest of the season, make the playoffs. It could be a very impactful move for the Ravens, for a team that definitely needs to be able to bulk up their pass rushing. It's something that every single team needs, but the opportunity to be able to go to the Titans, who have a guy that was, is productive, being able to do those things on a quick moment are very fantastic for a team like that. We're going to talk about Jalen Phillips here again in a moment because there is a lot of stuff that went on with the Philadelphia Eagles. Howie Roseman pulling a rabbit out of his hat, getting a guy from the Miami Dolphins. We're also going to touch on here in a moment Jacoby Myers. We're going to talk on Rashid Shaheed. There's a lot of moves also that did not happen that are going to be very, very important down the stretch for a lot of teams. There is a whole lot of stuff going on here. I think we should have Ari back here in a moment, but want to take a moment for you guys. If you have not already, go over to our YouTube channel. We do updates all the time. In addition to now trying to work in some of these live streams, we also have episodes that come out 3 days a week. We have the very special Tuesday episodes that we normally do with our wonderful guests that we spotlight from around the NFL. We have guys that are executives. We have guys that are players. We have guys that are coaches, GMs, former players, former GMs. They come on and we help shed a light on what is going on in their careers previously, what's going on now. And there's just a whole lot of stuff that we can glean from these stories. We've had guys on like John Spytek, who's having his first season with the Las Vegas Raiders. We've had guys on from, former executives. We've had guys on that are former players. We've got Rondé Barber on, somebody that is very, very close with me and Ari. We've got guys on like Logan Ryan recently, who's doing our show over at NFL IQ, telling some fantastic stories about when he picked off Tom Brady's final pass as a New England Patriot. We've had Nick Benito on this year, who's making a case for the Defensive Player of the Year there with the Denver Broncos. We've also had guys on like Baron Browning. There's a whole lot of stuff to check out on that page. We obviously do a whole lot here at the My Sports Update page that Ari keeps busy with nonstop. He's fighting through sickness with us here today. He's fighting through the mic issues. There's a whole lot of stuff that we can be taking from Ari into our own lives about hard work, dedication, and even also some things like technology that we can learn from Ari. We can say, you know what, maybe we should have the microphone working, but that's okay. because we're going to get through it here right now. Going to keep telling you guys about all the wonderful stuff that we have going on as well at the 33rd team. Make sure that you are checking out the St. Brown brothers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the most fantastic players in the league right now. Electric stuff. Every single week, he and his brother Quinnen St. Brown, former Bears receiver, former Saints receiver, he's going through everything from the action of the games that are going on in the weekend and also everything from pop culture, talking with guys that have come on, Roma Dunze. We've had a whole lot of guys on that show that are absolutely fantastic. We're also now working with the Derek Carr and David Carr duo, the Carr brother experience that we have there, homegrown. They have had some electric guests on as well. John Gruden was on very recently. Obviously, the opportunity to have John Gruden and Derek Carr talking to each other is just an electric situation. Anytime you can have those guys going through it, they're going to continue to get more guests on. We've had Marshawn Lynch on. Just a whole lot of exciting stuff going on at the 33rd team. NFL IQ is another show that I'm involved with. Cynthia Freeland, NFL data scientist and NFL media's own. She does an excellent job of being able to bring the numbers and the context. Logan Ryan then brings the player experience. We have combined it into a show that goes through all of the greatest news going on from around the NFL, as well as analysis. Our friend Zach Martin is also joining about every other week. He's going through all this cool stuff with us. And it's been a very, very exciting time with our program of slates. We've got some more special news coming soon. And I think that our wonderful host here, Ari, is very close to joining us. Let's see if we can get Ari back in here. Ari, my friend, are you back?
Sort of. I'm on my phone now.
Wow.
Do we hear me?
We getting Ari from the phone? This is fantastic.
Yeah, my computer has decided to crash. So
wow. This is the fun part about technology sometimes is, you kind of roll with the punches. And that's the great part. We're so happy to be here live on X right now. And you guys get to ride along with us with all the stuff. But we've got a whole lot of other football still to talk here, Ari, particularly with those New York Jets. We were getting ready to talk about what went on with the Breece Hall situation. Somebody that was being reported as wanting to get out right before that deadline hit. Deadline hits. He's not moved. Can you go through a little bit of the process of how we went from thinking he was a sure lock to get moved? He's expressing on X that, what's going on here? And then ultimately he stays.
Yeah, a lot of tweeting and deleting by Breece Hall on Tuesday of clearly he was frustrated. I mean, that's not really a crazy thing to say. I mean, he lost two of his best friends on the team. Sauce Gardner obviously lost Quinnen Williams. And I think as the day went on, he basically was like, all right, I'm in the final year of my contract. They've had no extension talks with me. And the team is clearly 1-7, now trading their best players. They might as well trade me. And as the deadline got closer and closer, I think he started to realize, like, wait, am I maybe not getting traded? Maybe I should create some noise here. And that's kind of what happened over here in that last hour and a half of the trade deadline. We had Kurt Benker, the former NFL quarterback, leaking a DM with him of saying he wanted out. So a lot of things were going on with Breece Hall. Ultimately, like I was saying before my computer crashed here, the Jets and Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, one of the things that I'll give them a lot of credit for is they set a amount for a player of how much they would actually trade him for. And if they don't get that amount, they are not going to trade that player. So Quinnen Williams was not getting traded unless they got a 2 and a 1. Sauce Gardner was not getting traded unless they got 2 2s. Jermaine Johnson, we'll get to here in a second, was not getting traded unless they got a 2 and more. Breece Hall was not getting traded unless they got a 3. And the best offer they got was a 4, believed to be from the Kansas City Chiefs. And they just were like, no, we're not doing it. And I do know that Breece Hall is supposed to become a free agent after the year. I also will mention the transition tag and the franchise tag is also on the table here. And Aaron Glenn, before the season, spoke very highly about Breece Hall. After training camp, when there were some rumors and Braylon Allen was getting a lot of love, he said, no, we're not trading him. And they were willing to trade him. It had to be a 3. No team was doing a 3, and now he stays with the Jets. He did speak to reporters on Wednesday. He was asked if he requested a trade. He said he did not, but he was also asked, would you have been okay with a trade? He gave a whole dancing answer here. Clearly, he would have liked a fresh start. I think he would have loved to be in Kansas City. There are some ties to that state with him and his family, but the Jets decided not to move him. He'll be there for the rest of the year.
What about with Jermaine Johnson from that same class of guys, 2 of them being traded, one of which not being?
Yeah, so Jermaine Johnson actually, he was very close to getting traded. And the 49ers and the Bears were the two teams that showed the most interest. The Bears actually had interest in a number of pass rushers, from Jermaine Johnson being the top guy to a middle guy like Arnold Ebiketie from the Falcons. And then eventually they were able to trade for Joe Tryon Choenka, a 6-7 swap with the Cleveland Browns. The Jets wanted a second round pick and more. No team was doing a second round pick and more. They did have an offer of a second round pick or a conditional third that could become a two. Haven't gotten that down all the way. But the 49ers are Robert Saleh. The Bears, after losing Dio Odenigbo for the rest of the year for torn Achilles, they were both trying. Again, asking price was too high. Quincy Williams, not much interest in him. He was also available. I actually just read uh, Quincy Williams told Rich Samini of ESPN that he's been benched. He's no longer a starter this year. So more changes happening here with the Jets. They would have been open to trading Quincy. No good offers came from him. He's going to become a free agent after the year as well.
Why didn't the Cowboys include him in the trade? Why not move the brothers together? Like really build some extra chemistry there.
It definitely is something that you would think would make sense. He does have a bit of a contract there, final year of his contract, but still getting paid some money here this year. I thought the 49ers would get him after the Fred Warner injury, but that was now one that they tried to do. Maybe not the same player, not the same speed, not the same movement. That's basically what he told Rich Samini here of ESPN upon getting benched, that the team has told him he lost a step. Not really a good thing to say, but that's kind of where we are with Quincy Williams.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to some of the skill position guys that were in fact moved, because one of the favorite guys that I think that we heard a whole lot about during the deadline or approaching the deadline was Rashid Shaheed. He does end up getting moved from the New Orleans Saints out to the Seattle Seahawks for a 2026 fourth and fifth round pick. What did you think of this move? What do you think of the impact that he's going to be able to bring with a JSN, with a Cooper Kupp, albeit banged up? How exciting is it that he should be going to that place? How do you think he complements? And what do you think about the return that the Saints got?
Yeah, let's not forget about Torrey Horton also in that receiving group, who had
Yeah,
two
true.
touchdowns on Sunday night versus the Commanders. I love this fit. I mean, the Seahawks offensive coordinator is somebody who used to work with Rashid Shaheed. Clint Kubiak is the offensive coordinator right now in Seattle. Last year, if people don't remember, the Saints started 2-0, and they started 2-0 with back-to-back 40-plus point games over the Panthers and the Cowboys. And Rashid Shaheed was going nuts. He was going crazy. Deep touchdown passes. Still has one or two this year. But putting him with Sam Darnold, who's been one of the better quarterbacks in football, not talked about enough quarterbacks in football, getting the ball out despite pressure, one of the better deep ball quarterbacks here so far this year. This offense is really opening up now with Rashid Shaheed. The potential stuff that they could do now, and again, there's familiarity here, which helps. This is one of my favorite trades that happened over here at the day of the trade deadline. The Seahawks came into the trade deadline hoping to do something big. Rashid Shaheed is definitely big. I think they had some other things lined up as well that ended up falling through. But Rashid Shaheed is a perfect fit for what they want to do. And I love it over here for the Seahawks offense, who we finally got a glimpse of them in real prime time on Sunday night. They had that Fugazi Monday night game at 10 p.m. Eastern, which nobody watched. This was their first real primetime game, and everyone got to see just how good, just how deep this team is, how good of a head coach Mike McDonald is, the togetherness, the culture they've built. It's a really, really good roster. And I think this offense has the potential to be a top 5, 7 offense over here for the rest of the year, with Shaheed coming in. And of course, he has something to play for. He's in the final year of his contract, wants to get paid. Former undrafted free agent, has not really made much money in his career to this point. He's actually been on a show over here in the past during Super Bowl week. So he's a really, really good guy as well. Somebody who I think will really fit this offense. And I think Seattle is a team to watch over here down the stretch. I mean, no one is talking about them. We're talking about the Bucks and the Packers and the Eagles and the Lions and all those teams. The Seahawks are right there, man. The Seahawks are right there. This team has depth all over their roster, and it's a really, really fun team.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I also love the caveat that you gave there of, he came on our show, so he's a really, really good guy. I like that should be how we define NFL players moving forward. Like, hey man, he is a fantastic human because he gets to spend time with Ari Meirov and Ben Allen. Quite a
I
fun
got to
time.
I got to hear from him, and I was able to confirm he's a good guy.
He's really, really cool. He's somebody that I think that a lot of fans are hopefully going to get to know, because I think the Seahawks are going to be playing football here for a little while and hopefully getting a little bit extra spotlight, because the dude's talented. And if you think he had been moved before the season, do you think that return would be a little bit greater?
I don't think the Saints wanted to move him before this season. I mean, I think the Saints, with a new head coach and Kellen Moore, they really wanted to steal what they have with these quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck now. And of course, we mentioned this before the trade deadline. They were going to move one of these receivers because they were in a predicament. The predicament was Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed have the same agent. Olave needs an extension after the year. Shaheed becomes a free agent. You're not going to pay both. And if anything, the agent, Drew Rosenhaus, was going to hold the Saints hostage over here to get one deal, not the other. So they knew that. They knew they had to trade him, but they, of course, wanted to have their young quarterbacks with all the weapons they could possibly have to show, are these guys for the future or not? So that was their intention going into this year. Clearly, the year has not gone the way they want to. They're 1-8 on the year. They move on from him, and that's kind of where they are right now over here. But this was always a situation where Shaheed was going to get traded. The question was, will it be Seattle? Will it be Buffalo? Will it be Pittsburgh? Will it be a surprise team? Eventually, Seattle does just enough, a fourth and a fifth. Keep in mind, Jacoby Myers, we'll get to him in a second. He went for a 4 and a 6. Same situation, final year of his contract. The Seahawks were able to do a 4 and a 5, which got the deal done. There was one other team that offered a 4 and a 6, matching the Jacoby Myers deal. Once Seattle went to a 4 and a 5, that's when the deal got done.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and slide right to that deal because I thought it was interesting that they were able to secure its similar value as what ended up being paid for Rashid Shaheed when Jacoby has been so adamant that he wants to be Dallas. This is something that's been going on for months. Everyone knew about it. Are you surprised that John Spytek, Pete Carroll, all those guys were able to get what I consider is probably pretty decent value for a guy who clearly wanted out?
Yeah, I mean, they wanted a third round pick the entire time. No team was going to do a third round pick. So 4 and a 6, when you look at the draft chart, comes very close to a third round pick. And the Jaguars had 13 picks. So they were willing to move on from some of these picks to get more veteran players. They're coming off that big win over the Raiders. Jacoby Myers just played the Jaguars. Now he's joining the Jaguars. As long as they won on Sunday, which they did just barely, they were going to be active over here before the trade deadline. We spoke about Quinnen Williams before. They were in on Quinnen Williams. They were in on other interior defensive linemen. The Jaguars really wanted to go all in over here and see, could we make some noise over here in the AFC South? They still have to play the Colts 2 more times this year. So Jacoby Myers, probably the biggest note on him with all of this is when you look at Jacoby Myers, he is not somebody who drops the football. I saw the stat. He drops one pass every 7 or 8 games. And we've watched the Jaguars this year. Their receivers have been a drop bonanza with Brian Thomas and their tight ends and some other players. Like there are times where Trevor Lawrence puts the ball in the right place and the receivers are just dropping it. Parker Washington and James Gladstone gave this really good quote to the Florida Times Union and about the trade. He said, you think about where we are in terms of volume of drops. What is Jacoby's superpower? It's not dropping the football. So he outright said it. I mean, that was the very big part for them. They get it. They get Jacoby Myers. He joins this team. Brian Thomas is dealing with an ankle sprain. Might miss this week. We'll see what happens over here. Travis Hunter is on IR. He has to miss 3 more games. So they really need a receiver help in the worst way over here. And Jacoby Myers is as reliable as it gets.
All right, let's talk about one of the more notable trades that happened a little bit before everything with the deadline rush, which was the Jalen Phillips deal heading from the Miami Dolphins over to the Philadelphia Eagles. They get a 3rd round pick in return. There was a levels to what happened with the Dolphins and not happened with the Dolphins. We'll talk about that here in a moment when we get to things that almost happened, deals that should have been made, all that stuff. But Jalen Phillips for a 3rd round pick, you're getting an impact player and potentially a comp pick in the future. What did you make of this move? And do you think that it is going to be a real needle mover for the Eagles?
You know, I really liked what the Eagles did. And of course, Howie Roseman is one of the most aggressive GMs in football. But the way they operated this trade deadline is we're going to get players here that also fit with people we've had here before. So Vic Fangio had Jalen Phillips before. He had 6.5 sacks with him before he suffered a season-ending injury. He was one of the very few players in Miami who actually respected Vic Fangio and took on his intensity and took on his toughness. If you remember when Vic was in Miami, one of the big issues that he had was a lot of players didn't take him seriously. They thought like, hey, you're too old school for us. That was Jalen Ramsey. That was a few other players. Jalen Phillips was one of the players who was like, yo, I like Vic. I enjoy playing for Vic. And when he suffered the season-ending injury, he was really distraught because he really enjoyed playing for Vic. So Howie knew that. They make this trade, give up a third round pick, and essentially Jalen Phillips will become a free agent after the year. And like we said, if he goes on and signs a big contract elsewhere, Philadelphia gets a comp pick. And again, Philadelphia had a lot of draft picks. They had, I believe, 3 third-round picks. So they were able to move on from one of these to get an impact player to, as Howie Roseman says, have a chance to have confetti on our heads after the year is over. So that's what they did with this move. But also the Michael Carter trade that happened last week. Joe Douglas, the GM with the Jets, now works with the Eagles. He drafted Michael Carter. He extended Michael Carter. The Eagles need slot cornerback help. They want to move Cooper DeJean all over the field in the secondary. This allows them to do that. And again, it's somebody who they have familiarity with. Even the Jair Alexander deal, which was a 6-7 swap with the Ravens, there's no real clear familiarity. Christian Parker, who's on the team, has some familiarity with him, but for the most part, this is a move who they played him last year in Brazil in week 1. They tried to sign him during free agency before he went to Baltimore to reunite with Lamar Jackson, and he has had no playing time in Baltimore. So adding more depth that way on a player you've coveted before, that's another way to do it. So I like everything Philadelphia did. Like Howard Roseman said, we're not going to sit on our hands. It's just not going to happen. We have holes. We want to win Super Bowls. We want to get better. We're going to do whatever it takes to do that. And they did that with all of these moves. And now it's on to trying to repeat over here as the Super Bowl champs.
Do you think they actually really had conversations about Myles Garrett and some of the other names that have been thrown around? You talked about dead money earlier in the show. Like, holy hell, that would have been dead money for the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns never were looking to trade Myles Garrett, not because um, obviously Myles is a great player, but also just from a cap standpoint, it just would be just so difficult to take on. So did the Eagles call? Of course. I mean, Howard Roseman calls on everybody. It wouldn't surprise me. We actually have legitimate reporting about the Micah Parsons thing, about him calling the Cowboys, which was always going to be a long shot, but him offering significant package over there to try to make it happen. Jerry obviously said no, but again, Howie spoke on Tuesday. He's not going to sit on his hands. When there's times to be aggressive, when there's times to get a good player, I'm going to go out there and do it. And a lot of fan bases wish their GMs could do that. There are a lot of teams who did not make any moves on Tuesday. That is the Chiefs, that is the Bills, that is the Steelers, that is the Ravens may have won on Monday, but they could have done more. A lot of teams didn't do anything. Now, a big part of it is having ownership that gives you the green light. Like, for example, we're going to talk about Kansas City here in a second, but for them to make a trade, they need those draft picks because they're not a big cash spending team. They're also going to have to pay Trent McDuffie and Rashi Rice after the season. So when you put all that together, it's hard for them to give up a third round pick. That is their vantage point. But the Eagles, they have a bunch of draft picks. They're always wheeling and dealing, and they have more draft picks than players they could have on their roster. So this is easy for them, and that's how they're able to make these trades.
What about anything else, Ari? I know there were a few other trades when you were disappeared there. We briefly mentioned the Draymond Jones trade. You know, Shoyanka, you mentioned a little bit briefly as well. Is there anything else we need to recap here of real note?
Yeah, I mean, Draymond Jones, you mentioned him before. He's been in the type of system that Zach Orr is running over here. So that's one where the Ravens felt very comfortable doing it. It's a fifth that could become a fourth, and it really easily could become a fourth. If he has 2 sacks and the Ravens make the playoffs, that pick goes from a 5 to a 4. He's had 4.5 sacks the last 5 games. So that is something that could definitely happen over here for Tennessee. They were not going to trade him for a swap of picks the way they did Roger McCreary and Jarvis Brownlee. They wanted a legitimate pick. They got that there. They did not get that for Chigakonquo. They did not get that for Calvin Ridley. They did not get that for Devondre Sweat. Those guys did not get traded. The other trade that didn't happen, which I was shocked by, Ben, Bradley Chubb in Miami, I thought he was for sure going to get traded. I thought there was the Colts. I thought the Cowboys. I thought the Ravens before they traded for Draymond Jones. All those teams made sense. The Dolphins didn't want to do it. Some teams around the NFL are a bit confused as to what direction the Dolphins are going in because you trade away Jalen Phillips, but you don't trade away some other players. Obviously, they fired their GM, Chris Greer, before the trade deadline. That definitely made things more complicated here. But that was one I was surprised by. And then Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals have lost back-to-back games. They're 3-6 in the year now. Teams called, teams had interest that included Seattle, that included a few other teams, that included Indianapolis before the Sauce Gardner trade. Definitely interest. The Bengals wanted a first. They lowered it down to a 2. eventually none of it got done over here because even if they got a 2, the teams who are willing to offer a 2 were teams who would be picking the back end of the second round. So Bengals are like, you know what? Forget it. Let's have him here. Maybe we can make a run. Our defense is awful. Let's get him back on the field and maybe we can look a little bit more respectable. And that's how it ended there for Cincinnati.
Yeah, and we can touch on more of those moves in a moment, but you made a good point about some of the teams that didn't make deals, like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Buffalo Bills. Uh, when you look at the Super Bowl picture and you look at those teams that are really going to be in it, you can't look beyond what the Kansas City Chiefs have done so far to build the roster that they have. And this leads in perfectly to the conversation I wanted to have with our friends over at FanDuel. They obviously have a lot of stuff going on with us. They help support us. They help power us. You want to tell a little bit about the awesome deal that we've got going on with them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, FanDuel has been a really great partner for us. And basically, here on NFL Spotlight, every single week, we make our picks for Thursday Night Football. We've been doing that all year long, and FanDuel has been great supportive here for us. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet $5. If you bet $5 and that bet hits, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets. Go right now to fanduel.com/33rd to get this offer. Again, go there, bet $5 on anything. That $5 wager hits, use our code, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets on anything. NFL, NBA, whatever it is, whatever sports is going on right now, UFC, whatever it is, go out there and do it. And we're going to be talking about over here right now some of these future bets over here because after the trade deadline, Ben, I thought some of these markets will move, especially with teams that did make a trade and teams didn't make a trade. I don't think we really saw much of that.
Yeah, I mean that's what we were just hinting at a moment ago, right? Because like you see some of these moves go down, you're like, that's a needle mover. Seattle Seahawks, that might be a needle mover. I don't think anyone's poor Dallas Cowboys. I don't think anyone was thinking they're going to immediately shoot up. But even the Colts grabbing one of those guys that is one of the premier cornerbacks in the NFL. Kansas City is still leading the way at 600. Before the season, it was Ravens and Bills. I think up till the moment of the first snap, it was pretty much even for those two teams. The Buffalo Bills still there at second. The Eagles coming in at third. That's basically where they were before the season as well. What do you make of this, particularly with Kansas City basically standing pat at the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City staying pat is very interesting because again, they didn't make a move. They didn't trade for Brees Hall. They didn't trade for any interior defensive line, which is what they were looking for. So they're gonna go with what they got over here. And I think a couple of things here on the Chiefs. First of all, they're gonna get Josh Simmons, their left tackle, back over here very soon, which is a very big deal for them. I mean, we saw Patrick Mahomes getting beat up on Sunday versus the Buffalo Bills. Not all of it was because of the offensive line. Some of it was he was trying to do more and try to extend the play and whatever. But Josh Simmons, when he started the first 5 games of the year, he was like a wall. I mean, he was unbelievable. And he had a personal family matter, had to go, got it taken care of. He's back in the building. Chiefs are on a bye now. I think that's a very big deal here. And I think we've seen the Chiefs and what they could be. And I think that's why they are still the favorites here. They've made 3 straight Super Bowls. The offense, and I think everyone would agree with this, is playing much better than it did in these last couple of Super Bowl runs. What Rashi Rice has done to come back, I think that's why they're still the favorites here. But the AFC is truly loaded. I mean, from Buffalo to Baltimore making a run to what Denver is doing right now. I would say the Chargers, but I think that Joe Alt injury is going to really hurt them significantly. I mean, they have a really hard schedule here. So I think Casey will be able to surpass them over here very soon. But Denver, they play Thursday night. I have them winning and covering there. That's a team over here they're going to have to watch over here because after their bye, they have to face the Broncos. They must win that game. If not, this gets very interesting for Kansas City. But those are your top 3 right now when it comes to all of this. I still would not be sleeping on Green Bay, by the way. I would just put them over here also. Obviously, they've lost to the Panthers, they've lost to the Browns. Head scratching how they lose those games. But when it matters most, when they're playing good teams, there is this mantra and this energy the Packers give off where they're just a different team. And we're going to see that. Monday Night Football, YouTube TV and ESPN, please figure it out so I can watch the game.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But yeah, I would now root out Green Bay over here as well.
And you know what's funny, and particularly if you're going through those odds and you like some of those teams, right now Packers are seventh at plus 1100. It's not bad if you're really a believer in Jordan Love and you look at that record and you look at what they've been able to do. Sure, is it perfect? No. Is it going to get better? Probably. It's not a bad bet to be able to look over at that. We do need to go ahead and talk about more of the things that almost happened, because there were some moves that you've already alluded to: Bradley Chubb, Trey Hendrickson, some of these guys that really we thought could be on the move, Brees Hall. Is there any other insight that you have into deals that almost happened?
So, I mean, there were definitely a lot of things that were going on. The one that I'm waiting for somebody to report on is what Seattle was up to. And I've not been able to get my finger on it, but all day yesterday while the trade down was happening and before I started feeling really sick, um, there was a lot of Seattle rumblings out there. They're working on something. They'd be willing to move on from players in the final year of their contract. That was, Boye Mafia was mentioned, Tariq Woolen was mentioned, some other players were mentioned. I'm curious to know what they were trying to do because, as somebody mentioned to me last year, the Seahawks made this linebacker trade of they traded Jerome Baker for Ernest Jones. That was the linebacker for linebacker swap. They were looking for a Mike McDonald fit, and that's a player who fit. So Boye Mafe, Tariq Woolen are guys who maybe don't fit, and they were trying to move those players to try to get a different player on this team. I don't know who that player was. I'm really hopeful that one of the other big time reporters out here do find out about it and do report about it because I think Seattle had something up their sleeve and they believe they're a really good team. They're 6-2. They have really good depth and really good players, and we don't talk about them enough. But just defensively, I mean, what Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams are doing, nobody's talking about. Devon Witherspoon is back. Julian Love will be coming back soon. Like there are legit players on this team, and I think they wanted to swing for one big defensive player. I don't know who it is. I'm curious if somebody does report on it, but that was the one I was watching the most yesterday. It didn't happen. And then we mentioned before the Brees Hall was Chiefs or nothing. Jermaine
Oh,
Johnson
really?
was
It really was. You think the thing that everyone, all the fantasy owners wanted, it really was Chiefs or nothing?
it was the Chiefs were the most aggressive team there, and I believe they offered a four. Didn't happen. The Jets wanted a three. Jermaine Johnson.
Why, Ari? Why would you not just do that if you're gonna let him
So I,
walk?
I mentioned so the Jets why they wouldn't do that. So
Yeah,
they really like Brees Hall. They
but
really
Brees
do.
doesn't like them now, apparently.
That's true, but at the same time, and I think the Jets know this, Brees Hall is playing for a contract, so he's going to give the best over here. And I think Brees Hall is represented by really smart people, and I think his people will tell him something like, "Hey, Deontay Johnson last year ruined everything for his market because he got pissed off.
Yeah,
Don't do that over here." So that's kind of the way
maybe
I look at
different
it.
personality types, to be fair.
Right, but you get my point. Like, don't
Of
get too
course.
frustrated. Do not get too frustrated. Like, finish the year, get your payday, and everything will be okay. Did he want to get traded? I do believe he wanted to get traded. But at the end of the day, it didn't happen. Finish these last, 8, 9 games, whatever it is, and then we'll see what happens in the offseason. But Chiefs wanted him, didn't happen. Jermaine Johnson, we mentioned before, 49ers, Bears were the most aggressive teams there. Jets were asking for too much. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones here that happened. Let me see what it was. The Bills were in on Rashid Shaheed, didn't happen. Jacoby Myers was Steelers or Jaguars. Jaguars edged them out. Um, Jalen Waddle was a very interesting one as well. The
Yeah, can you speak on that one? Because that was another one that I think a lot of people were really hopeful they could potentially see him on their team. I know they were asking for what, a first and more. Did they ever
yeah,
get close to that?
Jalen Waddle was, yeah, Dolphins wanted to get a one, and the Broncos had legit interest. They wanted to go Cortland Sutton, Jalen Waddle, and then have some of those young guys, Troy Franklin, and some of these other guys, Marvin Mims, eventually coming back. Like that will be the situation there. And obviously, they just were not going to give up a first round pick. But the way the Dolphins were looking at this, they believe, and it's true, Sean Payton is somebody who, when he wants a player, he'll go and become reckless to get that player. So they thought they had a shot. It didn't happen. Jalen Waddle is staying in Miami. Reasonable deal. Tyreek Hill, who's injured, his contract is very cuttable after this year. So Jalen Waddle is going to become the wide receiver one in Miami. But if they were able to get a substantial package, which they were willing to listen to, that could have happened. So that was another one here. And everything else was more teams asking and like, hey, we don't think we're going to do that. A lot of interior defensive linemen were available. Arden Key also was available for the Titans. They didn't get an offer they wanted. The Titans were very adamant yesterday. we're not doing any more 6-7 swaps. If you want to get us a player, give up a player, we want a pick, and we're not giving you anything. And they got that for Draymond Jones. They did not get that for any other player. So that's kind of all from the top of my head what happened here on Tuesday.
What about up the middle? Jeffrey Simmons. He was somebody that, they talk about as a cornerstone of that franchise. I imagine a team with some draft capital. I kept saying to myself, if there's the dark horse, I think it was the conversation we had, could a team like the Rams with those 2 first-round picks try to make an aggressive play, try to get their Aaron Donald that they've been looking for? I know they have great defenders, young guys on the team, but that's a different level.
Yeah, Jeffrey Simmons was not available by the Titans. It just was not happening. They were very adamant about that. Mike Borgonzi, their GM, spoke today to reporters and basically told them just how important Jeffrey Simmons is as a player for the building, on the field, off the field, holding everyone's heads up high. He's really turned out to be a cornerstone player for them, and that's who they're trying to build around. I will say, Jeffrey Simmons did switch agents a few months ago, and he's due for a payday this offseason. So that's where it gets interesting. But for now, the Titans were like, no, he's part of our future. We want him here. That was off limits for Tennessee.
I'm going to ask you another one that I imagine probably ended up being off limits, but a guy that just loves, we love to give him attention as somebody who could be traded because he is of that Myles Garrett ilk. He is of those top pass rushers. Max Crosby. Do you think that there was ever any real smoke there with him? Was there ever real conversations coming down the wire of like, hey, we'll offer you 2 firsts? Happen or no?
I think the Raiders got calls. That's all I'll say. I think the Raiders got calls. Max Crosby definitely told the Raiders, I don't want to be traded. The Raiders definitely told him, you're not going to be traded. That did not stop the calls from coming in. I'll say that much. I don't think they were doing it. I'm very curious, though, I will say, about the Raiders and the organization and where they're going. Pete Carroll, with the age he's at and where the team is right now as an organization, and then John Spivey, the GM, coming in, who's very well respected around the NFL. I think he's going to do a great job in Vegas if he gets the time. But this is an organization that really has to figure out who they are. And I think when you have a head coach who wants to win now and you have a GM who kind of realizes you're team number 4 in the AFC West and you have a lot of work to do to get to 3-2-1, it's hard to work it out with a head coach. So I'm curious to see what the Raiders do over here as the year goes on. And eventually, when the season ends, when everyone gets back together, Mark Davis, Tom Brady, all these new investors that came in and say, where are we as an organization? Because they were able to get a 4 and a 6 for Jacoby Myers. That's great. I think they had other players to trade on that team, not including Max Crosby, who I think they did not trade because of that predicament.
Interesting. Let's stick with the theme of pass rushers here for a moment. Kayvon Thibodeau with the Giants. That was a name that was popping up. Do you think they actually wanted to try to be able to move him?
I think they would have. Sorry, my phone battery is dying here, so we're gonna have to move over here like that. But I think, yeah,
It's a better shot, Ari. Now we're just getting a better shot of you. I think that's what everyone wants.
For people who are joining now, my computer crashed during the beginning part of this interview. Now I'm on my phone. Now my phone is dying. Yesterday I was sick. It's been a very long 2 days here. But Kayvon Thibodeau, yeah, Giants, they got calls on him. Again, similar to most of these teams, I love those reports that, oh, we're definitely not going to trade him. Like the Jets, we're definitely not going to trade Sauce Gardner until they got 2 first-round picks and more. Kayvon was the same situation. Like the Giants got a crazy offer, they would have listened because the reality of that situation is Brian Kearns is getting paid. Abdul Carter was just drafted, and Kayvon is up for a contract. Was already up for a contract. Will be up for a contract after this year, entering the final year of his deal with a 50-year option. So it never came, but teams called, including the 49ers, and they were told, blow us away or no. So that's kind of where it was at, and that's where it ended. But Kayvon, this offseason, one to watch because I think he's been really a selfless guy this year, has taken on a role he kind of doesn't want to because of all these other pass rushers on the team. He's playing inside more. And when it's time to get paid this offseason potentially, and maybe the Giants say no, what is his reaction? So that's an offseason story to watch for sure.
Okay. So we can keep your phone alive here because we know that you need to be able to keep that phone alive to be able to keep the My Sports Update page going. Let's jump to winners and losers. I know it's such an it's just like, all right, who's the winner, who's the loser kind of stuff. But like when we take a real look at it, it's not necessarily just always about this moment. Who do you think overall were the big winners and the big losers from yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely give my biggest winner, in my opinion, was the Seahawks. I love what the Seahawks did. I mean, I know that's probably not the flashy answer here, considering all the moves that happened, but we got to see them on Sunday night. They've been doing this all year. I mean, this is a real team, and Sam Darnold is a real quarterback. And I think, as crazy as it sounds, Ben, Sam Darnold is playing better now than he did last year, weeks 1 to
It's
15.
crazy.
I
It
know.
really is.
So it says a lot. It says a lot about him. So they see that, they believe that, and Rashid Shaheed's going to open up everything for the offense. So I'm excited to see him. We'll see if he plays on Sunday versus the Cardinals, who of course played on Monday night, so a short week for them. But I think that opens up everything for JSN, for Horton, the rookie, who's someone they're going to play more. Cooper Cup, when he will be back. I don't know if he's going to be playing every single down, but he'll be on the field. And then there's going to be one or two times a game where you just throw the deep ball to Rashid Shaheed, and he's going to come down with it, and it's going to be awesome. So I'm excited about that. I would also give the Jets are. It's tough to say win or loss, but I respect what they did. That's what I would
If
say.
you're going to tear down, you might as well tear down. I know there was a lot of people that have said like, you're taking apart a top five defense. The defense wasn't top five. These are two blue chip players, but it wasn't a top five defense.
Yeah, I don't know who the source on that was, but if it was Robert Sala or Jeff Ulbrich, it would not surprise me. But um, yeah, they have not been a top five defense this year. That defense has crumbled year over year the last few years when they were really good. They still have really good players, but it just wasn't meshing. And I respect it. I did get a funny text by somebody yesterday where he was like, "This is a good way to save your job security for 2 more years." So shout out to
Yeah.
the Jets for doing that. But I get what they're doing here. These draft picks have to hit, and I like how everyone is saying, "Oh, they're going to find a quarterback in the draft." I would slow down on that. I mean, I would not rule out the veteran quarterback market for them again. I mean, Kyler Murray, say what it is, he's been benched in Arizona. I mean, that's basically what's going on. He'll be available this offseason, and he's somebody for New York. So I think the veteran market is also a potential there. But they have to have these draft picks. And again, this is not a situation like Tennessee or Miami or whatever. Like, there are still really good players on this team. The offensive line is really good. They have two bookend young ascending tackle, something the Chargers had before injuries. Like, they have that. They have two really good pass rushers. They have, other Garrett Wilson on this team. I mean, maybe AD Mitchell does go out and go to his potential. Like, there are players on this team. Mason Taylor has been a bright spot for this team at tight end. And trading away Sauce Gardner, Aaron Glenn said this today, and it was not a shot at Sauce Gardner, but he's like, "Hey, we beat the Bengals last week without Sauce Gardner." And when you look at their cornerbacks, Brandon Stevens, aside from week 1, who they signed this offseason, he's been outstanding. They really like the Azaria Thomas kid who they drafted this year, and they traded for Jarvis Brownlee, who has been outstanding for them. So they think they have their 3 cornerbacks for the future here, and they got 2 first-round picks and more. Obviously, Sauce Gardner is great, but if you're 1-7 with Sauce Gardner, you might as well try to get more picks here and try to build for the future here and try to build the image of Aaron Glenn and what he wants to do. And Aaron has mentioned a million times, he said, look at what the Lions did. They started 0-11 and 1 and whatever. Keep in mind, the Lions, when Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes got there, they also got 2 first-round picks from the Matthew Stafford trade. The throw in the trade over there was Jared Goff. The throw in the trade over here is
Almost like a
Adonai Mitchell.
salary dump, right? Like people
Right.
are looking like, oh, you got to take that deal, I guess.
But very similar trades where 2 first-round picks and a throw in. This is 2 first-round picks and a throw in, and let's see what it becomes out of it. So I'm not calling them a winner or a loser, but I respect it. I also respect what the Colts did. I like it. Go for it. They traded first-round picks before. That scouting department is excellent. So they could draft in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5 and still be okay. So I respect what the Colts did. They have not won in a long time. Carly Ursi Gordon, she's taking over the show. She okayed this trade. They made it happen, and let's see how they do the rest of the year. But this is it was a very fun time around the NFL over here on Tuesday.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we need to talk about, is on that loser side of things, which is, maybe it's hard to say exactly who the losers are, but I would argue that some of the teams that didn't make trades, particularly in the NFC West, maybe were some of the losers when you do see a team that was one of your winners, the Seahawks, going out, making a splash move to be able to bring in a Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to the Rams and 49ers, they did make trades before the deadline. Roger McCreary, Keon White,
Sure.
but I know
Different
you're
level, though. I would
different
argue
level.
different level, though.
I would agree. I would agree with that. But again, it takes two to tango. Brandon Bean, the Bills GM, spoke today. He's like, I went back home yesterday. I felt like I wasted my whole day. I mean, it takes two to tango. You really have to get two teams to do it. And again, these GMs and fans don't realize this. they're not just thinking about the present, but they're thinking about next year and the year after as well. And there's budget stuff. There's how much your owner allows you to spend. I mentioned the Chiefs example before. They need those draft picks. They need young assets because they're paying a lot of players, and they're going to have to pay McDuffie, and they're going to have to pay Rashee Rice. Like, it's part of the equation when making these trades. So trading a third round pick, it's not an easy thing to do when you know that third round pick could become a Nick Bolton, who was a second round pick for them, or could become some of these other players they've drafted in those rounds. Leo Chanel, who's a starter for them, who was picked around that area. So that is the thought process a team like the Chiefs is having. But we all know, like Howie said, the goal is to have confetti on your heads after the year is over and winning a Super Bowl. Teams tried, but the losers for me, I would probably mention a couple teams here. I thought the Dolphins should have traded more. They had offers there. They traded away Jalen Phillips. I thought they should have traded Bradley Chubb, who essentially has no guaranteed money left after this year and probably wants a fresh start anyways. I thought they should have considered trading Rasul Douglas, who had some value. I thought they should have listened to some other players on that team as well. If they got a one for Jalen Waddle, they should have considered. They didn't. But there were a bunch of players on that team that teams called on. There were offensive linemen on that team, reserve ones, who teams called on trying to do a 7-6 swap. So there were offers on the table, and Champ Kelly, their interim GM, was put in a very difficult position because I heard from a team who told me, like, we were talking to Chris Greer, and now we're restarting talks with Champ Kelly, and Champ doesn't really know what those talks were. And honestly, we have to restart everything. It's just like it's impossible. So that's the hard part for them. But I thought they should have done more. And then the other team here that I thought maybe should have made a move was probably one of those other AFC teams. I thought Denver, you're 7-2. You're cruising in the AFC West right now. You have the Chiefs coming up in 2 weeks. You want to win the division. I was curious to see if they go out there and make some sort of a move, whatever it is. Their team is really low. They have really good players. I felt like let's add one more player here, get the energy up, get the momentum up, get people fired up over here. I thought that could happen. And maybe it was Jalen Waddle and it didn't happen, but I thought that was a team that you were here last year and now you're here this year. And how do we make sure we stay there? So that was my thing over here. And again, Chiefs coming up in 2 weeks. So that's the big one over here. And we'll see how that goes.
Ari, we made it through. We made it through the tech issues. We made it through. This is fun, though. I think that there might be some more opportunities for us to go live here in the future. We'd love to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on something like this. Hopefully, we can get some interaction. We can talk with people. We can answer some of the fan questions because I know a lot of stuff that is going around, ping-ponging around in your head. You don't always get a chance to say even in a normal episode. So maybe if somebody asks and you go, oh, yeah, well, the Chiefs were the only team that was looking in at Breece Hall the way that we, maybe figured. Really some good insight. I know every single time I ask you a question, even when we're not doing a show, I get a fantastic answer. And you should go over as well to our YouTube that we have. Go over there, hit subscribe. We do episodes 3 times a week. We have our Tuesday Spotlight guests that I was talking about earlier. We bring on former players, execs, GMs, current guys. There's a lot of more people that we still have here coming up that we're really excited about. And we just have a fun time on NFL Spotlight talking about the news and notes from around the league.
A lot of fun time. Really enjoyed doing this live. I'm looking right now on my computer here, which is back alive. 14,500 people watching concurrently right now. That's pretty awesome. So shout out to all of you here watching. You. We'll definitely do more of this in the future. Like Ben said, we got through all of it. Got through my food poisoning yesterday, which was awful. Got through my computer crashing today. Got through my phone almost dying before. We're doing this on my phone. I don't know how we got through all of it, but we did. We will be better next time for sure whenever we do go live. But this was fun. Really enjoyed it. One of the craziest NFL trade deadlines in recent history. The day of, for sure, craziest one that we've had. Thank you to the Jets for making that happen. And we will definitely see everyone over here next time on NFL Spotlight.
See you guys.